Welcome to Three, a part of the Tennis Channel podcast network. I'm Gill Gross with Joel Drucker and Amy Lundy. We're going to look ahead to next week where Rafael Nadal is in Malaga, Spain for the Davis Cup Finals, the final event of his career. And we will also look back on Novak Djokovic's 2024 season, which was shut down after the Shanghai final where he lost to Jannik Sinner. He was kind of non-committal about his schedule moving forward, and it turns out he does not play Paris. He does not play the ATP Finals, despite qualifying. So we'll unpack Novak's year, and we'll look ahead a little bit to next year. But of course, all eyes on Malaga at the moment, Joel. And I'm just wondering, like, what would happen for us to say at the end of it, and for Rafa to say at the end of it, okay, this was a successful Davis Cup Finals for Nadal, and that we can all kind of go home happy and feel good about what went down.
Reminds me of when I think of USTA league tennis. Best scenario is team wins, I win also. So for Rafa, it's healthy enough to play a match of sorts, whether it's doubles, whether it's things, at least one match, and hopefully even more. Second scenario, knowing Rafa, it's always an interesting thing in league play. Team wins, I lose, or I win, team loses. Which is the better? I think Nadal, the second one is team wins, I don't get to play. I don't get to play. And that's just the way it goes. I mean, again, Spain and the Davis Cup, we'll talk a little bit more about what Davis Cup means to Rafa, but I think that's the second scenario. But I think most of all, he'd like to play and see Spain win the Davis Cup.
I would
Yep.
be shocked if Rafa doesn't play. In fact, watching Tennis Channel yesterday, I believe Jim Courier said he was hearing that Rafa was going to play singles. At least that's the way it was leaning. So that should be a lot of fun. I think I've seen video of him. He says he's healthy. He seems healthy. He's got a smile on his face. I saw a bunch of pictures that he had taken with fans that they're posting to social media. So he seems in a really good place and, doesn't really have retirement top of mind, but has helping the team win top of mind as usual.
Yeah, he talked about that in a I don't know if it was a press conference. I believe it was, and I read some of his quotes from it, and he basically said, I'm not I'm not in Spain for retirement. I'm in Spain so that we can win the Davis Cup. So he's really trying to focus on the competition aspect of it. You know, I think David Ferrer, if Rafa were to say, like, I don't know, Captain, like, I'm not sure I can beat Botic van de Zandschulp or Talon Griekspoor right now. I'm pretty sure David would be like, no, please play like you're playing. I'm sorry. And I think everyone will be pushing him in that direction. Uh, And that's what I hope, again. And we talked about this, I think, a couple months ago when Nadal first announced that Davis Cup would be his last event. Like, I feel like it's more important that Nadal plays than Spain. Winning isn't guaranteed, right? But even if let's say playing, I don't know, let me look at the roster right now. If playing is Roberto Bautista Agut instead of Nadal might give Spain a 10% better chance of winning. I don't think that matters. Like, let's have Rafa play here.
Are you saying hypothetically if? Because I don't know. I think if I were Ferrer, I'd play Nadal in singles over RBA. I could be wrong. A healthy Nadal anyway.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. Like, it's hard to say. There's so little data with Nadal. I mean, he hasn't played since clay court season. RBA has had a nice indoor fall hard court season, not to get in the weeds, but I'm not sure.
Well, but I think also you open with this theoretical thing of Nadal saying that's Ferrer. I think we need to look at both the public and the private Nadal. The public Nadal is always going to be convinced he can't beat anybody. Public Nadal would play either. If you asked him if he was playing either of us, he'd say in the pre-match press conference, "Well, I don't know. I've never played any of these three before, and I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll just see what the way Nadal always kind of downplays his possibilities. But the private one, I don't think he would express ambivalence to his Davis Cup captain. I think he would express certainty one way or another. I don't think he would put that on his captain to say, well, if you're unsure, I need you. So I think Nadal, I'm ready to go.
Fair
And
enough.
that Ferrer takes out his word, and that's that. Meantime, the three of us, we have our shot against Nadal.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, he'd be like, this Joel guy's a lefty. I mean, that
Ah,
presents its
lefty,
own
lefty.
challenges.
Yeah, right.
Uh, um, look, I guess where I'm coming from on that is just that because I agree with you, Joel. As much as Nadal in a press conference might say, like, I'm just going to try my best, but I'm really concerned about this first round match against the qualifier. Yeah, like there's a level of confidence to him. However, he pulled out of hard court tournaments after clay court season, and I don't think there was an injury. I just think didn't he wasn't up for it, didn't feel confident that he could compete at his best. Which is really what he said. Like when he pulled out of the US Open, he's like, I can't compete. When he pulled out of Laver Cup, he said, I can't compete. So I think his belief in himself might be fractured at this point. And my hope is that if that's the case, it doesn't matter. We all just want to see you go out there and get lost in the moment, and just try to win a tennis match. And regardless of how it goes, I think everybody would be happy just to see that in Spain.
But again, he's not going to put that on Ferrari saying, I'm not sure. He's going to say,
Right.
he may talk with his camp, with his people, with his family, with his confidants. And I know while Ferrer is a good buddy of his, Ferrer is, that's business. He's going to say, I'm ready to play. And that's it. Or he'll say, I can't. It'll be that binary. And I think, remember, this is also the end is in sight. The other ones, there was still Davis Cup was out there, right? Other slams were out there. Now it's like, okay, here it is. It reminds me of the time, Agassi once said, and I've used this as a match management thing. He was playing some match. He said, all right, all I got to do is go 20 good minutes now. Instead of thinking about it's 2-2, it's the fourth set, it's this, just give me 20 good minutes. And I said that once to a doubles part. I said, all right, let's just give 10 good minutes now. Right? 10 good minutes. And then so Nadal, he knows a week from today it's all gonna be over. So yeah, I think it'll take a remarkable thing for him not to play.
Let's think about guys, if he had to play Greek Spore, um, what does that matchup look like?
It's a tough one because Griekspoor likes the indoor hard courts and he likes a court that's going to play fast. I don't know how quick Malaga will end up playing. Griekspoor holds serve at a really high clip. He struggles to break serve. He he doesn't move all that well, but he has great skills. Uh,
Well, maybe Greek Spore would be the more favorable matchup to go with Alcaraz, since Botic beat Alcaraz, and if Griekspoor has a hard time breaking serve, then Carlos has just come off the ATP finals where he was on a fast hard court. So maybe that would be the play.
Yeah, I do believe there are some rules about like the top ranked singles players need to face each other, then the next ranked single. So you have some leeway as far as who you're going to play, but you wouldn't be allowed to, let's say, like flip Nadal and Alcaraz. Alcaraz would have to play your number one.
You can't stack. You can't stack. You're
No
gonna
stacking.
put the 22 slam guy.
I'm laughing because this is what happens in amateur tennis, like USTA League, and that's why I'm thinking that way.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Yeah, and you can sacrifice the doubles and do all the yeah, and do all no, I think for Nadal, I don't think he gives a rip.
No. And Botic versus Griekspoor
I
comparable.
gotta be Rafael Nadal. I gotta play the game that I've been playing for 20 years at this level.
Yeah.
And just do it and just throw it out there.
And then what about doubles? What would be the doubles play? If let's say Nadal doesn't play singles, would you pair him and Alcaraz in doubles?
All day.
100%.
Okay.
They
Even
have
if Alcaraz played a singles match.
This is where the Davis Cup, the 2 out of 3, just to think once upon a time, guys like John McEnroe and Raul Ramirez and others, they were playing best of 5 for 3 straight days.
Mhm.
Spain does have Marcel Granollers, world number 4 in doubles. But I still think you throw Alcaraz in there.
You got to throw Alcaraz in it because it reminds me of something a coach said to me once. He says, this guy's really good in doubles. And this guy who's a singles player hasn't played as much. He's just a better tennis player. He's just a better tennis player. It's a high stakes situation, and Alcaraz, is scarcely a he knows how to play doubles.
And look, again, it goes back to the occasion and what this actually all means. Spain wants Nadal Alcaraz in that doubles match. Like every tennis fan in the world wants Nadal and Alcaraz in that doubles match. And I I just think realistically, and there's no disrespect to the competition that is Davis Cup. It's very important. I put a lot of kind of I wish they would tweak some things, and I wish that fans it was more fan friendly and that it was easier to get into. But I think as much as the Davis Cup matters, this moment for tennis matters a whole lot more. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, particularly given what Davis Cup has become in the last few years. Particularly once the as the Davis Cup format has been kind of, you know, altered. With unquestionably, this will be more right.
Although, what you could do if you're Ferrer is Alcaraz plays Botic in the singles match, and then Nadal plays in the second singles match, and if that's a loss, then Alcaraz could play with Granulieres for the doubles match because you wouldn't want to play Nadal in the doubles match after he just lost singles. I mean, I'm just sort of gaming it out.
Well, you have to see how Nadal is physically, because
Yeah.
otherwise it's do or
For
die
sure.
for Spain. And I think Nadal doesn't might not want to be. I think that's probably true because that's two matches for Nadal in 2 days. But again, we don't. We this has always been the thing with Nadal. As straightforward as his competitive thing is, his injury thing has always been what's the word, opaque. Like the recovery, what's going on, how good are you, where are you at physically, what kind of treatment do you need? We never quite know exactly where he's at, and that's okay. I'm not criticizing him for that. It's just the nature of injuries and recovery. And part of it is his sportsmanship doesn't like to dwell on it too much.
Yeah, and it's especially mysterious because we, again, as I said, we have no data. We haven't seen him play in a long, long time. Um, what about who's going to be there and who's not, and the ceremonial aspect of it? Novak said he would be there, which is incredible.
Aw.
And but he said that a long time ago. So hopefully nothing's changed. Like it's not fully confirmed in my book, but that would be amazing. Um, Rafa said he hasn't spoken to Roger. He said in the press conference that they haven't spoken. So
I
I don't.
bet Roger will be there.
You think I kind of think he shows up
Yeah.
regardless of if
Yeah.
they've spoken or not. Um, I think that's been very nice in the Andy Murray farewell and in Rogers' farewell at Laver Cup that they have done it in the presence of their great rivals. And hopefully we get that again. But what Rafa said also in his press conference is he said, look, this is not going to be my last farewell. This is not going to be my last goodbye. So we're going to have moments in the future to kind of celebrate what we did.
Just not as a player, right?
As a retired player, yeah, as a recently retired player, I guess. It is
Yeah.
true, right? Maybe we do sometimes act like these things are a little bit more terminal than they are. But I think the three of us all thought that Roger Federer was going to go on all of these exhibition tours in retirement, and that hasn't happened because I think his knee actually hasn't been healthy enough to do it.
These retirements, these retirement things in all sports, because of what athletes can afford and travel and all, are really neat in their way. And in tennis, though, they're kind of like, what does it even mean? Like you see these players who announce it and then come back. It's not like the team sports where you file your papers with the league. You have to be signed. You're just kind of like, what are you laughing
What?
about?
Mike Tyson retires and then comes back at the age of 58 or 59, whatever he is. But that was a funny fight. It was just humorous. But yes, very apropos.
Yes. So, right. So what does that mean? They come back, they retire. I remember talking to a
I'll
player
tell
once.
you, that would
As a
be really funny and right. Let's say John McEnroe asks for a U.S. Open wild card. Does he get it?
no,
And
but
then in the waning moments of the match, the opponent just starts bowing to him.
I saw McEnroe win a doubles tournament when he was 47, a good 14 years, 15, 13, 14 years after he had last played a major. So
Yeah, well, I want Andy Murray to start his doubles career now, but
yeah,
I don't know that that's going to happen. I guess he's acting now. He's in some play or something. So,
It's so cute. Yeah, did you see something on Twitter that looks almost kind of it's kind of cute what they do. It's fun. I like Andy Murray's persona that way.
All right, so let's move on to Novak, and we'll reflect on Malaga and what goes down there, and we'll talk about bigger picture Nadal stuff. I know this was very preview Davis Cup Finals, because
One
that's kind
last
of
thing I want to put a button on something with Rafa. Let's
go ahead.
remember with '04 Davis Cup when Rafa was 17, 18 was when he first really hit the radar in a big way. Big crowd, 27,000 people watching, and that was really when he kind of really surfaced in the biggest way possible. So the 20-year cycle of it, I think, is really appealing to him, and that can make for some nice moments. I sure hope he gets to play and gets to play several matches, and it becomes a very exciting thing for all of us.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, totally. That full circle poetry. And Nadal will put that 29-1 Davis Cup record on the line if he's able to play singles.
Right.
All right, so Novak ends up shutting down his season after the Shanghai final. He was, again, as I had mentioned at the top, kind of non-committal about his schedule after the US Open from the very start. And my interpretation is frankly that, he did kind of want some time to fully reset, refresh, and think about 2025. But he wanted to go to China. I think there are a lot of business opportunities for him there, and it's a massive, massive market. I think that tournament means a little bit more to him than your average Masters 1000 potentially. So he goes there, plays it, makes the final, loses to Jannik Sinner. And it's kind of amazing that he can just still make a Masters 1000 final, even when I feel like he was in deceleration mode. I'm not going to say he came in there without really any intensity and preparation, but clearly in deceleration mode, and he was still able to make the final. Then he said he was injured with Paris and ATP finals, but we know that there are a lot of rules about pulling out of tournaments, and I think sometimes you have to cite an injury or you get fined or you get penalized in the bonus pools and all that. So I'm not sure. My read on it is that he didn't have much interest in playing post US Open this year, but there was enough lure with Shanghai that he went.
There's not a tennis player that walks the planet that couldn't come up with an injury right now that they have.
100%.
So it's not dishonest in any way, shape, or form. And at his age, an elbow, a knee, a back, an ankle, wrist, whatever, maybe he shouldn't be exacerbating it anyway, since he certainly has plans to play in 2025. So all fair there.
Yeah, and isn't there also didn't Federer invoke this a few times? You're over 30, you've played enough Masters 1000 events or Masters that you can kind of skip them. And it's like, and
Yes.
even if there's a fine, guys, put it on my tab. I mean, it's okay. And we've talked before about kind of the pragmatism difficulty of the fall season for all players, for players of all levels, much less someone like Novak. So, all right, I mean, onward, and commence the prep for 25. Whether that means not touching a racket for 2 weeks or doing some other things or figuring out what the proper way of peaking is or stuff, the whole coach thing, all this stuff.
So Joel, after Novak won the Olympics, you basically said, "Hey, wouldn't it be funny if this was his only title all year long?"
Was
That's what happened.
There it
I mean,
was.
what an insane story 2024 was for Novak. We come in, we all say it's really about the Olympics this year. That's the main target. We could not have foreseen what a bumpy road it would be before and to some extent after, lesser extent, but to some extent after the Olympics. But he has that moment in Paris, and I think if we're being fair and if we're being like realistic in terms of I think how Novak looks back on 2024, I just think the same standard that we came into the year is the standard that we need to come out of the year with. That was the goal. The goal was completed, and we'll get into what we learned about Novak in 2024. But as far as success failure, it's success for me. Like it has to be.
Absolutely, it's a successful year for him in that sense. And of course, in the Wimbledon final, using Wimbledon as the training ground to peak for the Olympics and then beating Alcaraz in the Olympics. And I think also, in a macro sense, understand the Olympics and Novak is kind of a significant kind of empathy exercise. There's a tendency for media to engage in the kind of look from above and results and slams and all this. But the real challenge is the empathy act of really seeing how the world looks from that player's vantage point. And that's where the studying the game as we do really helps. And you look at Novak, you realize just how meaningful Serbia is from different than players from other countries. Different from not every country, not every player has the automatic same affinity for their same country the way Novak does for his. That's incredibly meaningful from what Serbia means, from growing up there, from the importance of that Davis Cup win in 2010 that propelled him to become number one in 2011. So and his significance in the country, the significance of a tennis player in that country is, that's kind of, let's say, what Becker was that way for Germany for a while, but there's never been an American player who means that to America, for whom America, I mean, that
No.
doesn't mean that, of course, Andre Agassi was happy to win the Olympics, and many players were happy to win Davis Cup. But the significance of both the tennis and the Olympics, I mean, and that his anguish at other Olympics where he didn't do as well, that was very powerful.
I just find it very inspiring. He was asked early in 2024, I think it was an interview with Prakash Amritraj about would you rather have a slam or Olympic gold this year? And he said Olympic gold. So it was like this was his goal. He set out to do it and he did it. That's in terms of like goal setting and achievement, it's inspiring and it's box checked and huge success because that's what he set out to do.
I thought it was great that he had to do it versus Alcaraz also. I think we cover that. That he didn't, I mean, that people didn't fall and he didn't earn the Olympics against someone who could normally beat. He beat the guy who just beaten him in straight sets in the Wimbledon final, who's been the heir apparent the last couple of years, who's by now has captured four majors by the age of 21. So that's a great late career statement.
Yeah, just unbelievable. Uh, what do we make of everything that happened before and everything that happened after? The fact that that gold is his only title. I mean, it was definitely the most inconsistent Novak Djokovic season, probably since 2006. So it's worth assessing that. It's worth evaluating why that was the case and talking about what it means moving forward, especially because Novak has said, among many things, that he is not planning on retiring anytime soon. That's what he said, but I also think at the same time he's gonna need to continue to achieve the results that satisfy him, in order for those two things to happen. So, Amy, why do you think the lows this year were much more frequent for Novak?
Well, his age. I mean, just look at other sports like golf, for example. You can see an older golfer go out and have one incredible round, but trying to put together four consecutive rounds is really difficult. So as we age, it's just a biological fact. Consistency starts to slip. But on your other point or your ancillary point, Gil, about losing and motivation for this year and not wanting to retire anytime soon, I do think losing gets old for people like Roger Federer, Nadal, and will get old for Novak. It's not something that people like this will want to tolerate too much of. So it's a real push-pull. And, one potential motivating factor could be Sinner. This guy has emerged and potentially even surpassed Alcaraz as the king of the sport right now. Can I knock him off one more time? That kind of thing. That could be a potential point of motivation. But if he wants to continue to play at an elite level, he'll have to find that somewhere because training, especially for the Grand Slams that are best of five, it's not something that you can really do halfway.
Well, and that's why the taking off this fall was good, and then take off time, maybe not even playing family. But I think it's kind of great for Novak that the slam that's his slam, the one, each of our three has a slam that's significantly theirs, even though they've won all four. And Novak, it's been Australia, which he's won 10 times, and he can point himself to that, focus for that, and really and we'll know by the end of January, we'll have a strong indication of where he's at. Did he struggle? Did he struggle early? What happened subsequently? Last year, there's this in 24s when he lost to Sinner. It's like the plot was that clear by January. Here's Sinner, and Sinner proved himself the guy in 24. And I think Novak, again, public and private. Public, I want to do well. It's about the process. Private, it's like, yeah, give me one more shot at that guy. That
But
guy.
Joel, you agree like Novak needs to feel like he can be competitive with Sinner or Alcaraz in order to have any interest in sticking around, right?
Well, the stick around thing, well, yeah, but he got data for it. He beat Alcaraz in the Olympic final.
No, yeah, right. We're not there yet, but I guess the larger point is we're not going to see Novak doing it. Now, Andy Murray, for example, I think it was a very different circumstance because it wasn't really Murray versus the tour. It was kind of Murray versus his hip. And he was kind of trying to, he had this severe injury. And I think his climb on the way back, trying to get back to better, greater heights after that was kind of his own battle that he was embracing. So it was almost a different thing. But I just think generally speaking, what we're saying is, like Amy said, the losing will get old. I believe for Novak, as much as he might want to say, like, I might play LA Olympics 2028, that is dependent on his ability to continue to be in the elite ranks of the game.
Well, this is always the thing whenever a player starts to decline, and again, I've heard this, well, can he stand? He only wants to be where he's been. And of course, and Murray was in many places. Murray had had his moments in the top three and there was number one and all that, but he'd had a certain injuries and other things had taken him out of that for a while. So his exit was less dramatic, not dramatic. It's different. Novak, I think it's not what you feel. The great thing is sport, you see, and then the marketplace tells you, and certainly it's those guys because those are the heights Novak has been, but then it's also, yeah, it's the week in and week out. It's the willingness to do the work. That's the thing that Pete Sampras told me that always sticks with me. The willingness to do the work when you're not, on a given day, a great like that is always convinced he can compete with anyone. On another one, he's not.
I'll tell you one thing. If for some reason the deal with WADA gums up Sinner's Australian Open and he's not able to play for some reason or there's some complication, if Novak sniffs a path, this could be Nadal Australian Open in 2022 when Novak wasn't there. It's like, okay, let's get in there and let's grab this. I smell an opportunity.
I agree with that. I like that. But at the same time, I think it's just you just play and the matches tell you and the recovery, I think there's also the whole recovery aspect. So let's say he puts in a massive effort, Australia, 5, 6, even 7 matches, and even if he wins it, and then it's like, okay, where's the body really feel and how does that get itself ready for the ongoing campaign, right? How does it get itself ready for the other terms, for into the Indian Wells and the Miami? And do you want to do that again? Or is it just kind of like I made my go in Australia and now what am I going to do?
Yeah, I think it's probably more so about his level and how can he get to playing like Novak Djokovic um, of let's just say 2023, right? And this is what I think the main factor is. And we talk about motivation all the time, and I think it's important. It's not like something that I've ignored. It's a huge factor, and he needs to figure out how to be motivated. But if I'm assessing just the tennis this year, I think the movement from 23 to 24 went downhill more substantially than we've seen it. Like I think the decline in the movement kind of accelerated this year. And what's difficult to determine is how much of that was knee injury, knee surgery, coming back, not quite having it. Yeah, it looked better at the Olympics, but I just thought for most of the year, even 2023 Novak Djokovic, who was still old, right, did not looked a lot quicker than 2024 Novak Djokovic. And I do think he's got to get some of that movement back. It's got to get back to a good enough level where he can compete because yes, serve is a monster now, forehand is a monster now, skills are awesome. There's still, if he's going to beat Sinner and Alcaraz, there is a standard of movement that he needs to be at.
Those guys are younger and are moving better. You're the interactive nature of the game means your weaknesses are not your weaknesses. Where your skills are is what revealed by your opponents, right? In other words, a younger, faster player makes you look slower, right?
Right.
So that's kind of the thing, and it's like, yeah, there's no, of course he wants to, he'd like to. I mean, these guys always want to envision that they wish to, and then it's like, can they? Can they when they come a chance to play a Sinner, and even when they come a chance to play, Alex de Minaur or someone?
One more topic. Does Novak need a coach in 2025? Because after the split with Goran in March, the Ivanisevic was not replaced. There were people in his team. We know that he was getting a lot of, analytics helps from various sources. So the data was coming in. Obviously, the physio is there and the agent is like, there is a entourage, but there was no Ivanisevic replacement. Does he need that next year?
Let's frame it this way. What kind of personnel does he need on his team to help him maximize 25? And I think you bring back Vida for like, the guy. And it's like what this is about, the coach at this point is almost about inspiration and more forms of motivation, similar to the way Martina Navratilova brought Billie Jean King into her team. I've been around a while. I've seen everything. Be with me because it's lonely out there. And you'll remind me of what I had once before. I think that'd be great for someone and bring someone like that back into the mix. Or okay, and if it's someone else, some other legend, Pete Sampras. You know what I mean? Pete Sampras, his hero.
Um, I did see a picture of Novak and Vida, palling around recently, so maybe there's hope for that. But my answer would be I cannot answer that question. It's something that only Novak could answer because he's really one of the few in the world that's ever been in this situation. So I know it's a cop out, but whatever he thinks is best.
I
Well, it's
would say
funny.
cognitively no, like no, not necessarily, but like the thing, but like in his head, for his head, no, for his heart, why not? Why not? I mean, like it's like kind of what I thought of. What a major reason why I think Federer worked with Edberg had to do with I like being around this guy. I like having him around me. And think of that at all levels, how okay, wow, and you can afford to have, the budget isn't an issue with Novak Djokovic. So this guy good to have around. It's kind of like he's an audience. He might have a tidbit. He might have some things to say. He might tell me some stories or two that might kind of click me into some gear. And let's have another friend for what could be the last few goes.
I'm with you. Like somebody asked me this on the mailbag, and it's funny because my answer was a combination of Amy's answer and Joel's. Because the first thing I said was this would be my first question if I had Novak in a press conference right now. I just think it's the most interesting thing right now to ask him is, hey Novak, like, are you looking to add a head coach in 2025 and take me through your thought process in that decision making? And it would be fascinating to hear what he would say. And also, what has this year been like without a coach? Have you, felt like you're missing something, or have you felt fine?
Well, what
Um,
happened? It's great. Those are great questions. That's right. And knowing Novak, this is kind of some of the best of Novak because I thought this is really good. And this thing I like, it's like we're digging into really the tennis itself and the game and his view of it. And he's been, of all the three, I think the most eloquent of that on that stuff. The most like vivid and process and what this guy brings and what that guy brings.
Yeah, he would certainly, I think, be really expansive on it, and he'd probably share some awesome insight on the player coach dynamic. But if there is going to be someone who comes in, if there is that right guy for the job who can kind of give Novak more, it's not technical, it's not tactical. I think we can all kind of accept that. It is motivational. Like, and this is something that we don't talk a lot about in tennis, but we do for other sports all the time. The football coach who gets the team fired up before the big game. Like, this is a part of coaching. Like, part of coaching is bringing some energy, bringing some fire to the processes. Sometimes bringing some humor, right? Like Goran was great at bringing humor and levity at times. So I think that Novak might be able to benefit if the right guy is out there who could sort of just put him in the right headspace, in the most dangerous headspace, I'll say, as a tennis player. That would be the main benefit that he could get.
Agreed. Agreed. I think I want to think of maybe we should ask people submit their choices, who their nominations. Is it John McEnroe? Is it Michael Jordan? Who
Yeah.
is it?
Michael Jordan, that's a good one. Joel, I give you credit for naming names, though. Like you want the Vida, like your team Vida. Let's get him back in.
Yeah, one last, let's go. No, sure.
Being the tinkerer that he is and always likes new technologies and new things and shaking things up, if he really is serious about going full bore in 2025 and competing for slams, maybe someone that, we may know of, but who he hasn't tried before, something completely new and different.
Maybe.
Maybe that's kind of fun. It's like the contest to see a legendary icon and Ivan Lendl. I'm not joking about Pete Sampras and Ivan Lendl, a something like that. Or is there someone a little less prominent? Is it Nicky Pilic, who he's academy worked with when he was a kid? Is it someone we've never heard of? Um, I think, yeah, it's kind of a fun. And is it one person? Maybe it's two. Maybe it's two, whether it's some legend and some other guy who can be a little bit more the day to day.
It's certainly got to be someone with authority. It's certainly got to be somebody who Novak respects and who he can buy into, because otherwise you have a broken connection. And obviously the standard for that is very, very high, right? Somebody who Novak trusts. Like obviously Djokovic has done enough where he has a lot of his own ideas about how things should go. But it takes someone at the stature of a Goran to come in here with the conviction of sort of that's necessary, I'd say, to coach Novak Djokovic.
I think there's a real interesting developmental lesson in watching how Novak has managed it. And I would also say this about our other three guys, about members of the three of Roger and Rafa. A willingness to surrender. Remember, this is the sport where the coach is on your salary. Team sports don't work that way, so there's the leverage dynamic is different. However, what all of these have done is they've willingly surrendered. They knew a heck of a lot about the game. I mean, I know Rafa's case, it was growing up with his uncle, so that was a different situation. But as they reached stages of excellence, to say, Rafa's good, okay, Carlos Moya, yes, I'm going to pay you and I'm going to surrender my authority because I believe in you, believing in me, and I'm going to let that be. I mean, and that, of course, we don't know all that went on behind the scenes with these folks, but I think there's something very powerful in that. And these guys' willingness were so good to let themselves be in the hands of someone else to a degree.
The best diet is the diet you can follow. Doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter how good the diet is or how effective the diet is. If you can't do it, it's not going to work. Isn't it the same thing with the tennis coach? If you buy in, it might work. It doesn't matter what they tell you. It could be the best advice in the world. But if you don't buy into it, it's not going to happen.
No, it's about, and it's based in some ways more based on faith than confidence,
Right.
because it's based on evidence of things that you don't know that you believe can happen rather than, confidence is belief based on data. Faith
Yeah.
is based on faith. And so in a way, part of it is going to be, I know it'd be interesting to learn if Novak has had numerous chats with people in recent weeks.
Well, the coaching thing is going to be an interesting storyline. I think the consistency thing that Amy was talking about is going to be fascinating to watch. Like, is it just going to be a Novak Djokovic who still has the highs, but just can't stay at that level with the same regularity that he once used to? What will 2025 bring? Well, we have a month or so, maybe about 6 weeks to talk about it before we start getting results. Meanwhile, next week, Nadal, Malaga, Davis Cup. We will talk to you after that. That'll do it for this episode of 3. Remember, we're available on all podcast platforms. We appreciate it if you leave a rating and a review on Apple and Spotify. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. We will see you next time on the next episode of 3.